place. This is a home where no revealed truths are promoted and no scripture or human being accepted as infallible. This is a place for searching for truth. But we are believers. We believe in intellectual freedom. We believe in justice. We believe in compassion and concern for each other and the whole world. We believe in commitment to those ideals which make us caring and active in the struggles for human dignity. We are Unitarian Universalists.
My name is Nicklin, and I am a friend here at UUCO. And I have spent a lot of time thinking about my spiritual journey, so I hope that I've come up with something good to share. At the beginning of my spiritual journey, I thought a lot about obedience as being the right way. Figuring out what is true and what is not true, and then from that, extrapolating what I should be doing, how I should act. But I also love a good mystery, and I suspect that a lot of you do too. So the first spiritual rite that was performed for me was upon my birth. My grandmother and my mother prepared a complete astrological chart. And for those of you who haven't seen one of those, they are very detailed. There are many, many different symbols to learn, lots of terminology that's very specific to astrology, and then also, of course, because astrology is related to a lot of other mythologies, there are great doorways into those places. So for the first several years of my life, I was surrounded by talk about all of these great 12 archetypes, these 12 personalities that influence the world. And I do believe that there is a lot of truth there. There are sparks of truth everywhere. So my grandfather also told me about these 10 Commandments things. They are a practical framework, straightforward, pretty directive, not a lot of mystery there. When I went to my mom, because I'm a girl of questions, I would ask her all the time, Mom, what should I believe? How can I believe what you want me to believe? And my mom, in her wisdom, said, I have made my choices and I have my beliefs, and you have to find your own. So as time goes by, around 8, I received 2 gifts. I received a Book of Mormon with the Doctrine and Covenants and the Pearl of Great Price with my name emblazoned in gold across the front cover from my aunt. And from my grandaunt, I received a tarot deck. 22 mysteries and 56 life lessons in full Technicolor. So, I tried really hard to figure out how to obey, and I asked my mom again, Mom, how do I figure out which thing is right? What is true? How should I behave? And she told me again, I've made my decisions. I've come to my beliefs. You have to find your own. Well, time has gone by, and I have been privileged to learn many, many things. I have learned Reiki. I have engaged in Falun Dafa, Wicca, spiritual movement, ecstatic dance. I'm both Buddhist and, I've lost the word. The opposite of sacred. What's the opposite of sacred?
Secular.
Secular, thank you. And secular meditation, so both Buddhist and secular meditation. And in all of these places, I have found sparks of truth. Tiny, tiny, not provable, completely logical mysteries in all of these places. So I've discovered that my initial question about obedience may not be a big enough question. My initial question of who should I obey, what is right and wrong, how should I act, is actually not a binary question, but a question of embracing everything, of embracing all of those truths that I have found over these years. And so, in closing, I still continue to figure out what my name means. Because part of the reason why I had a binary journey in mind is my name is half of each of my parents' names. Their names are Mike and Lynette, so my name is Micklin. An interesting part of that is that you can decide that that means you either choose. You're either your parents, one or the other. But I think that maybe they were pointing at a bigger truth, which is that I am one, the other, and a lot more than that. And for those of you who also love a mystery, I hope that you can also continue to look for your name anywhere that you find your truth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather Root, and I'm a member of this congregation. And I'm kind of nervous to stand up here. I'm really glad that Renee picked that story to tell the children. I can make mistakes. This is good. So my parents, when I was young, were Mormon. They converted to Mormonism in the early days of their marriage. And they moved to a cabin down a long dirt road in New Hampshire and made a big garden and canned and preserved their food. They took the teaching of provident living very seriously. And we went to church, and I really loved being close to the land. That lifestyle really spoke well to me. But when my youngest sister was born, our family really changed. She needed a lot of care. It was immediately apparent that she needed medical care, and as she grew older, it was clear that this was going to be a lifelong thing. She had a genetic disability, a gene that made it so that her cells expressed all the other genes differently from other people. It was called Soto's syndrome. And now I see her really as a gift. But at the time, this was really hard for my whole family to accept, that we had this disabled person in our family, or differently abled. But I spent a lot of time sitting and thinking, like, how does a benevolent God bring suffering like this into the world? And I couldn't really jive my experiences with the teachings. So I left the church, and I decided I'd become a scientist. Science is really cool. I love how in science we observe stuff and how we piece together all of our observations to sort of make a story, to try to understand why things are happening. And we look for more things to observe, and we refine our story, and our story has to be consistent with the data, but because it might change, we might get new data, we can't be especially attached to any particular story. We have to be prepared for new data to come along. So I decided I would be a botanist. I went to college for botany, I went to grad school for botany, I got my PhD. I teach at Weber, it's really fun. But this is my spiritual journey. And that's not really fully answerable by science. So there is one story about science that I want to tell you right now, though. It has to do with the human body. One of the things we've discovered in science in the past decade or so is that about half the cells in our body aren't actually us, more than half. There are microbiomes. There are bacteria and fungi and other things that live in our bodies that help us with digestion and all sorts of things that we need to do. And we have a word that describes this. The holobiont is an organism and all of its symbionts. And I like this metaphor and story because it makes me realize that I'm a holobiont. I'm an organism and all my symbionts. So I'm a community, which is cool. But still, that just doesn't really tell me about my spirituality. I think overall, I'm more or less agnostic. I don't really have any data about God. I think that's okay. But I can tell stories. As a scientist, I'm pretty good at telling stories, like lots of different stories. And where I don't have data, I can turn to like which stories are beautiful and joyful and express the life that I live in a way that feels truthful. So I look for stories, and I enjoy stories from many different sources. Lately, I've been particularly enjoying the teachings of Buddhism, but in a few months that might change. You know? So a lot of things feel like they're changing, and I think that's okay. Some constants in my life are that I breathe, I walk around, I look at plants, I see beauty in the world. I find that I have a lot of faith in the things that are constant, like seeds and rain and soil. Pretty consistent. They give me joy. And I also find a lot of joy in my human community, which is what has brought me here. I'm really happy to be surrounded by other people and other stories that help me think about the world in different ways.
I would like to start out with a poem first, and then give a little speech about my spiritual journey and finish off with a musical number. This poem is called Triumph. Triumph. If you can sing when there's no song in your heart, if you can keep on being loving, lovable, and lovely when those who should be loving you are blind, if you can hold a lifted brow despite the weights your shoulders cannot bear, there is benediction there for you to share. If you can carry on dry-eyed while your heart is drowning in a deluge of tears, if you can keep on going when the pain in you is just too great, and your soul is shaken with hopeless anguish, and your suffering, ache-filled body wants to slump, if you can keep on going and keep on going, when nerves and blood and muscles scream and sob with the injustice and unholy ways of those who should be warm and just but can't be, because the abysmal holds for them more lure than the celestial. Why, God? But if you can tilt your cheeks sunward, keeping your eyes filled with spiritual light and message, and coax a skip of childlike rhythm into your lagging walk, and lift your best foot forward as though you had no care, there's benediction there for you to share. Virginia Stillman. My speech is called Finding Transcendence Where You Least Expect It. After traveling to the edge of the earth and back again, I can say with certainty that nothing is certain. All notions of right and wrong, understanding, and what role God plays in our lives have been put to the ultimate test. Clearly, I stand before you healthy with my sanity intact, but it hasn't always been that way. Sometimes we have to go to the edge to find our center. And I'm not the only one. Many great composers struggled to find their voice and be heard in the mass crowd. But one thing was clear: their strong faith in beauty and goodness helped them to carry on against insurmountable odds. The fact that we hear their music even after they're gone is a statement to the power of the music they created. Maybe I'm not one of the greats, but I still believe in the power of music and beauty to transform lives, and thus I strive. The piece I'm about to play is Preludium and Allegro by Chrysler. If you get goosebumps as I did when I heard this piece, then you'll know what I'm talking about when I say God is beyond comprehension, analysis, or parameters.